Hi everyone! In this video you will learn how to export images that include dynamic text from the metadata in any font, and to do that we'll use only Lightroom Classic without any plugins. First, I will show you quickly the very limited options we have in the print module. In the page panel you can enable photo info, which by default displays the file name, but I will change it to title. As you can see, there is no setting to change the font, and the only thing I can customize a little bit is the text size. The text is positioned inside the image cell, and I will enable the guides so it's easier to see. Of course, if I change the bottom margin, the cell size is adjusted and the text moves with it. Besides the lack of styling and positioning, this font also looks extremely pixelated, as you can see. So it's definitely not something I would use except for maybe just contact sheets. The only way to display text in a nice font is to do it with the identity plate or watermarking, but in both cases you are limited to custom text and not text from the metadata. I'll talk about the identity plate and watermarks in detail in an upcoming video in this series, so I will just skip it for now. So basically, that's what is possible in the print module, which is really not much. And to include metadata with a nice font, I will use the Slideshow module instead. Just as the print module, the Slideshow includes a few basic templates, as you can see, and some contain already text boxes with metadata pulled from the picture. In this case, the date, camera setting, and my name. You can very easily change the kind of metadata that is displayed, and just as easily it's possible to change the font and size. I will use this template as a basis because it is very simple and displays only the picture, so there will be less adjustments to make to the layout. Of course, this aspect ratio looks better with landscape pictures than portrait one. As I did in my previous tutorial in the print module, I will first take care of the aspect ratio of the page. And once again, I like to use the 4:5 aspect ratio, which is ideal for Instagram. The only problem is there are only 3 aspect ratio options. Screen, which in my case is a 4K, so it's a 16:9 ratio, and choosing that option doesn't change anything. And the third one is 4:3, so not as wide as 16:9. If you need to export images in those ratios, just select the correct one and go on designing your page. But for any other aspect ratio, this is where it gets a bit tricky. Even though the process might seem complicated, each step is actually pretty simple, and I will guide you through the whole process. But if at any point you think it's too complicated and don't want to do it yourself, don't worry. I've created a templates pack, and it includes templates for many common aspect ratios in both landscape and portrait orientation, as well as square and even some for panoramic pictures. If you're interested, check the details in the link in the description below. Okay, that said, let's make a 4:5 page. You can leave the current aspect ratio to 4/3 as it is now, or change it to any other value, it doesn't really matter. The first thing you need to do is create a template, and you can leave the default name and folder. We can modify them later. Now, right-click on that new template and select Show in Explorer. I guess on Mac it would be Show in Finder or something like that. It opens Windows Explorer, and here I see the template I just created. It's a simple text file, so you can edit it in Notepad or any other text editor. So I right-click, select Open With, and I already have Notepad here in the list, but if you don't see it, just click on More Apps and scroll until you find it. It should be safe to leave Always Use this app checked, but I'll uncheck it anyway as Notepad is not the text app I usually use. It's quite a small file and settings are sorted alphabetically, so just scroll down a little bit until you find aspect ratio. Its current value is 0.5625, which is the 16:9 aspect ratio I had selected. And actually it's not 16 divided by 9, but 9 divided by 16. The value you need here is the height divided by the width. If you've left the ratio to screen, you'll simply see the word screen between quotes. Okay, so for a 4:5 aspect ratio, we'll take the height, 5, divided by the width, 4, and that's 1.25. But I can also simply write the fraction 5/4, and Lightroom will do the math for me. That's done, so you can now close and save the file, and then you need to restart Lightroom to apply that modification. Now, when I select the template, it's in the correct aspect ratio, but you can see that Lightroom was really not designed for this because the preview panel still displays the 16:9 ratio, and the aspect preview has no value. But that's not a problem, it will work just fine. And now I'll take care of the layout and add some margins. As you can see, all margins change at once because they are linked. I will now click on that little box to unlink the bottom margin and make it thicker. Then, in the backdrop panel, I set the background color to white. And to add text, I just click on the ABC button in the toolbar, and instead of writing some custom text, I will select the title metadata. The default text color is white, so I will go to the overlays panel and change it to some shade of gray. And then I change the size. The text box is not centered, so I just click on the text and move it. And this little line indicates that the bottom left corner of the text box is anchored to the bottom left corner of the page. If you change the size and move the text box around, you can see that the anchor points change. Now the bottom center of the text is anchored to the bottom center of the page, which is fine for me for this design. But you can also manually change the page anchor point, and actually it can also be anchored to the picture itself. Back in the overlays panel, there are a few settings to style the text. The first one is the opacity, and of course you can change the font. Then keep adjusting the size and position if you need to. The text is dynamic, and so it will change when you select other pictures. In this case, the title metadata is empty, but don't worry, it will not show this in the image you export. It's just a placeholder to show you that there is a text box. In a moment, we'll export some pictures, but first let's disable the ending screen in the titles panel. It's just a black screen that would be displayed at the end of the slideshow, and if I leave it there, it would export a black JPEG image, which of course I don't want. Yet another thing that is just the same as in the print module is the possibility to reframe pictures that have an aspect ratio different than the one from the page. So just click on it and move it up and down or left and right. Just as in the print module, once again, we can choose to include in the slideshow all images or only the selected ones. Now, I don't know if it's a bug just in this Lightroom version on Windows or if you will have the same issue. But even though I just have selected one picture, it appears as only the first of 28 images, which are all the images in this collection. So if I want to export just this one, Lightroom will actually export all of them. The only way for me to avoid that is to select two pictures, and it would export only those two. Then I could delete the one I don't need. For this export, I will select a few and then go to the slideshow menu and export JPEG files. In the dialog box, there is a field for the file name, but actually it's not a file name, it's a folder name. Lightroom will create a folder with that name in that location and put all images in it. And finally, we can set the JPEG quality. For social media, I leave it at 75, and the file dimensions in pixels. There are a few common sizes in the drop-down list, but they don't correspond to what I need. So for Instagram in 4x5, it should be 1080 pixels wide by 1350 pixels tall. And as expected, the folder has been created with the 3 images inside. The second one doesn't have a title in the metadata, so you can see that the border is plain white. Before I forget, I will update the template with the new design, and I will change its name to something descriptive. That's it for this tutorial. I hope you have enjoyed it and learned a thing or two. And in the next one, you will learn how to add some graphics to your designs. We'll do that both in the print and the slideshow modules. There are some differences regarding what can be done in those two modules, and each one has pros and cons, so I'll talk a little bit about that. Please click on the like button below, it really helps me reach more viewers, and don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell icon if you'd like to be notified when my next videos are published. As always, if you have any questions regarding this video or anything you'd like to do in Lightroom, let me know in the comments. Thank you very much for watching and see you soon.